I've got 1 o'clock on this clock.
What time?
It's a volunteer. It's new to me. Anyway, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. Commissioner roll call. Phil Palmiano present.
Mike Van Dyke present.
Amendments to the agenda. Any motions to amend this agenda? No motions. Okay, so new business is the interview candidates for the commissioner vacancy. No motions or actions will be made. And I prepared just a kind of a statement of how we want to run the meeting today. And yeah, I'll read that and it'll be clear. So first of all, I just want to thank all the candidates for taking the time to come and interview for the commissioner position. I really commend you for your interest in volunteering and stepping up to serve the fire district and the community. I really want to try to make you feel as comfortable as possible, especially in an open meeting setting. I mean, it can be a little nerve-wracking. I know I'm not always that much of a public speaker, so I extend you the same courtesy as well. So out of respect for the candidates, I ask that the public just observe the interviews and not make any comments or speak directly to the candidates. Okay, that's the format that we're going to use. We do have in the public participation, if anyone wants to comment after the interviews are all completed, you're welcome to just make a statement or a comment. But again, I would ask out of respect to the candidates that you not say anything about them or criticize them or anything in that way, just out of respect to make them feel more comfortable. So we want to get to know each of the candidates better and see what skills and experience each can bring to the board and the fire district. So this is more of a one-on-one, old-fashioned type of an interview. You know, I'm old. And we've gotten, well, okay, I'll continue on with that, keep myself on track and not wander here. So for the format, Commissioner Van Dyke and I will be alternating asking the questions. We have the same questionnaire, and to each candidate. And yeah, so each one we have this questionnaire that put together, and what I'd like to do is go through it, ask the questions. We will be, or I will be, I have some people will do as well, jotting down notes and things as we go along, so not to make you nervous or anything. You said something and I'm writing it down. It's just for memory aid for myself.
Both of us.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. So, and yeah, so we might have some possible. Yeah, we might ask some follow-up questions. Did I say that? No. Okay, so we'll go through these, and then you answer the questions, we might ask some follow-up questions depending on answer and stuff. So pretty standard. So both myself and Commissioner Van Dyke have each received copies of each candidate's applications and resumes, and I've gone through each of them and studied them and looked at them and so forth. I assume you did the same. Okay. Okay, so the in-person interviews today are one tool of gathering information for us. So we've read the printed material, all the stuff that you prepared for us, and then we've got a pretty standard, I think, questionnaire to ask you. And then, so we're just gathering as much information as we can about each candidate, and we will not have any deliberation or discussion between us, and no decisions will be made today. On February 24th, we'll have a special meeting, and that was posted in the original announcement, and then we'll post it again on that day, February 24th at 2 p.m. Here, and then we'll vote on a selection and appointment. Okay. So, yeah, all right. So I'd like to welcome each candidate, talk briefly with the ones that came in and decided the order will go in alphabetical order by last name. So, Mr. Dolan, if you would come up. Yeah, just that. Again, I really thank you for coming.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. We're a friendly group, and we just want to make this as comfortable as you can. There's different ways to do it, but we felt and was recommended that we do it in an open meeting format. So otherwise, we'd have to interview separately, and it's more complicated. So anyway, so this questionnaire has got 10 basic headings, and so I'll read the heading, and it's kind of a category of talking about what the questions would be, and then I'll read the purpose for that heading, and then we have a few questions on each one. Okay. So the first one is commitment and availability. Okay. And the purpose of that is to ensure realistic availability for a small volunteer-based department. Okay. So first question. And also, I skipped. I'll go back to that. We'll stay right here. Okay. First question: why are you interested in serving as the fire commissioner?
I've been up here since 2016, and I think that sometimes you just have to reinvest in your community to help where there's a need, and there's been a lot of press and maybe panic in the community, especially with the last bond issue and that. I think that you need to sit down, and maybe I have some assets that might help, because it seems that there's a focus, and maybe that should be a broader view. And so I think that if I can help the community, I'd like to be a part of it.
Good. How much time can you realistically commit each month?
Probably about 24 hours a week.
Okay. That's a lot of time.
3 days a week, I think.
Okay.
I think that there's some huge challenges, and that the commissioners are going to have to really invest in order to come up with a plan for this next, what do you call it? Your next budget or funding vote or whatever. Levy. That's the word I couldn't think of. So I think there's going to have to be a pretty heavy investment, both either as a group or personal time.
Okay. Are you able to attend regular meetings and available when urgent issues arise? Our regular meetings are typically the second Tuesday of
Absolutely.
the month. Okay. All right. Okay, I kind of jumped the gun on that first question, so I apologize for that. But instead of jumping right into the questions, what I kind of wanted to do was allow each candidate to kind of talk about themselves a little bit, and just kind of an overview of, I've gotten to look at their resume and all that, so I've seen a lot of their credentials and so forth, and I really want you guys to kind of brag on yourselves. Don't be humble and say, well, we're looking for people with things to offer, experience and in lots of different areas, okay? So, and then maybe a little background on your, what you've done for work and so forth. And then at any time when you're answering a question and you feel like you want to input something, you know, I've got experience in this area because of this, then yeah, feel free to do that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So, yeah, go ahead, if you want kind of a quick background.
Well, after high school, I went in the Navy, and was honorably discharged. After that, I went to work for the FAA, and I worked, I'm certified in 3 areas: en route, terminal, and tower. So I'm one of the maybe 8% of the controllers in the nation that were able to do that. I started at Seattle Center. I worked there for 10 years. I moved to Seattle Approach. I worked there approximately 5 years. And along the way, I did little side trips. At the center, I worked as a training specialist for a few years. These are all steps to becoming a manager. At Seattle Approach, I worked as an approach controller, but also and departure controller, but also I went to work in the Airspace and Procedures office, and that's where I really learned critical thinking and strategic thinking, and then complex problem solving. Because in that, we brought in a 3rd runway into Seattle, and we had to deal with people that went on the press and did things like say, "What do you mean? They already have 4 runways, being 1-6 left, 1-6 right, 3-4 left, and 3-4 right. Same piece of concrete, it's just named different at each end." And so using that soundbite caused a whole bunch of other issues. Also, the Save Our Community, which is it's a coalition of the neighborhoods in the Seattle area that want to deal with air traffic, route patterns, and noise. And it all came down to property values, noise, and the airplane should be flying over poor neighborhoods. And you had a neighborhood, you just ask questions, you have to seek to understand where they're coming from. And a neighborhood says, hey, anybody who makes under 10 million, the airplanes can fly over theirs. The Seattle Save Our Community group then fractured because now everybody's got a vested interest in who's poorer, who's richer, so that was a whole new issue. At the end of it, we have good routes that are used to this day, and they've been in place since 1994 or so. And also, the other thing that we did for 6 years, the Navy had been requesting, there's an event in Seattle called Seafair. And Seafair culminates in a big hydroplane race and air show with the Blue Angels and everything over Lake Washington. And we've always accommodated that. The Navy wanted to come down and go into Elliott Bay, which is right underneath the Seattle arrival corridor, and launch and recover airplanes for 4 hours. They've always been told no. I sat down with our airspace team and we did a whole chalkboard thing. Let's come up with a way to make this happen. So basically we had 1,500 feet and below to work with. The Navy needs 1,000 feet. Angel flies a starboard delta to protect anybody going in the water. The traffic pattern for the carrier is a port delta. They're going to the left. So the news agencies, Como, Cairo, and King, all wanted their helicopters in there, and the Navy's thinking, oh, this would be a great advertisement. We put that together, and we made it happen, and it didn't interfere with Seattle's air traffic. It did cause Boeing Field to close for 4 hours because the Navy was blocking the arrival end at Magnolia there. And the big sticking point was, for the news agency, the sticking point was, who gets 1,100 feet? who gets to be closest to the action. So we took all their names, threw them in a hat, let the captain of the ship pick them out by altitude, 11, 12, and 1,300 feet. And that's how we solved that problem. That's how we got the buy-in. When you're dealing with all these problems, you need to put them on the table and do everything to walk around them and see if it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. So, budgets. I was a district manager for terminal operations in Alaska.
We have a question on that.
Oh, go
coming up.
ahead.
So, yeah, we'll skip that so we can keep.
So, from that point on, I went to a supervisor at a little place called Boise Tower in Tracon. I worked here from 1995 to 2000. Then I went back to the regional office and I did labor relations, law, contract law, and as a facility management specialist, grievances, drug or alcohol rehabilitation or removals. And then from there I went to Northern California Tracon in the traffic management unit. That's the second busiest Tracon in the nation. I worked 5,500 airplanes a day. I worked the Bay Area from north of Beale, south of Firebaugh, and Reno approach, all from the same building, 300 controllers. From there I went to Anchorage as an ops manager. I worked as an ops manager. The management team got removed. I competed for that position. I was provided a waiver for not having a college degree, and I was selected for the position. So I worked everything after that point on a waiver without college, just based on experiential knowledge. I managed a $41 million budget up there every year at supposed to have 180 controllers. It's hard to keep controllers in Alaska. And I dealt with all of the native Alaskan villages. Nothing, your toilet paper, your cereal box, nothing gets anywhere in Alaska without going by air. So you have all kinds of issues to deal with. Whether it's putting in a runway, environmental issue, Native American issues, whatever. So it gives you a real opportunity to sit back and listen to the ownership or their needs of what they have and what it means to them. Because it's real easy to go in and say, I know this, I'm going to do this, and this is what we need to do. But you need to always temper where you're going with how can they help you get there. And so buy-in is a huge piece. And that is usually most people's tripping point, is being able to sit down and listen. You have to listen to everybody's input before, and then try to seek more information. Because there's people that have information, it could be the quietest person sitting on the wall, and they might have the one piece that's missing in the whole puzzle. So you need participation, and you need to listen.
You want to get
Yeah, I got a couple questions.
Yes,
Like,
sir.
you mentioned that you were in Alaska and you worked with Tracon.
Yes.
Could you explain what that means?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I looked it up on Google. That wasn't good enough.
I'm sorry. So the FAA has a ATCT, Air Traffic Control Tower. That's one acronym I probably put in there. The next one is TRACON, Terminal Radar Approach Control. That's what that stands for. And then ARTC, ARTCC, which is Air Route Traffic Control Center. So airspace in the United States is all owned by the 25 ARTCs across the nation, Puerto Rico and Hawaii, and Alaska. They delegate airspace to the approach controls. So they'll take a block of airspace, like the block I described, from 30 miles north of south of Firebaugh, 30 miles north of Beale, Reno, and the whole Bay Area. Okay? 15,000 feet and below belongs to Northern California TRACON. So if you're gonna fly through there, you're gonna talk to them. Above that would be Oakland Center. So Oakland gave us that airspace. Then that airspace, we redelegate certain portions, usually a 5-mile radius, like we'll delegate 2,000 feet and below to San Francisco Tower, Oakland Tower, San Jose Tower, all the little towers. So they own that, so they can run the whole traffic pattern without having to talk to Big Brother. So that's what those, and I guess I should have spelled them out. That was an error on my part.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
You want to go to question 2? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I
I
had
didn't
one more
mean-
thing. So
Oh, okay.
while in Alaska, so I got picked up, so I commuted to Washington DC every other week for 3 years. So I'd fly down there and I worked in a bunker. I did 2 things. My office was interpretations. When I got there, we were 36 months behind on correspondence to managers that had asked for definitions or interpretations of rules. It could be labor relations rules, it could be air traffic rules. And that was because the former guy there says, we do 1 letter a week. So I put together a writing team. I brought in skilled people from different TRACONs or terminals. Some were from towers, and I put together a writing team. And when it started, first I had to teach them how to write a response that the boss could sign off on and that Congress would accept. So we did that, and then it was pretty cool because within 8 months we were caught up and we were waiting for correspondence. So we got those. And it was neat because I could get one and I could walk in and I could throw it and they were like a shark. They would all sit down and they would all read it, they would all make notes, and then they would discuss it. And they would work out a conclusion that was totally acceptable and then bring that to me. And I would read it and go over it and I would grill them on it, and then we would compose it and send it up for signature to go out for distribution. That is how you are successful, or in my book, that is how you do success. The other part of my time was locked in a bunker with a group called Booz Allen and Associates, and that was, we were basically the BRAC committee of the FAA. And we put together a program which encompassed everything from crime statistics, homeowners association dues, cost of a house, rentals, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, fire coverage, grocery expenses, schools, where were the schools rated? And the FAA went through a thing of moving to consolidating facilities, much like the military did. And this program, you put in all the data, and we were kind of surprised at what came up. Some of the places we thought were a shoe-in to move everything to, were not. And basically the program says you should just build a building out in Kansas and move every air traffic facility there, because the days of having to be under the radar are no longer needed. But it was very eye-opening because we got results that we did not expect. And one was the San Diego TRACON, where it got placed. Thought it should be closer to San Diego. Where it got moved to was out in an area where nobody was. Another place was Denver. They moved that 50 miles from the Denver airport. You know, and now it's all growing in and they get tons of noise complaints. So where should that move to? I mean, we used that as a test case to see. So, but that was very eye-opening. And so I think that all problem solving that has to be void of emotion. It has to be data driven, and you have to have empathy for those that are giving you input. You got to understand where they're coming from, because your thoughts on a budget may be completely different than yours or mine. But if you seek to understand why they're different, or what is important, then that all goes into the equation to coming up with what you need. And that's very important. Divisiveness has no place in what you're trying to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, let's move to the next question.
Yeah.
Why don't you get that one?
Yeah, I'll take number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2 is understanding the commissioner role. And the purpose for it is commissioners govern, they do not run calls or micromanage operations. Maybe you can give us a, so what do you believe the primary responsibilities of the commissioner are?
I think
You've
based on
you've been
that
sharing some-
question,
Yeah, you've been sharing. some-
because, you know, I believe they're like a third level manager. In other words, you may have done the job or you may not have. You may have experience that's needed. But here's a good example. When I was growing up, the lady that raised me was first a Sioux nurse on the railroad, then she was a nurse at the World's Fair in Seattle, 62. The doctor that was there was a Korean War veteran doctor, and their team is credited with starting what you have as a response team from the fire department. She developed, that team developed what an EMT is today. I learned 4 different ways to do CPR from 1972 until 1977 alone. Okay, when I first learned it, you smacked them in the chest, right? And then you went from there. So they took them from a Cadillac ambulance to a Winnebago motorhome cardiac response team to the trucks you're driving in today. That is exactly the one thing I learned in that training was, you're an EMT, get out of the way, I'm taking care of this. The problem is if that EMT was the commissioner here, and the expert, the heart surgeon walks in, and you tell him to get out of the way, that's not my place. I'm not there to fight the fire. I may be there to take notes and ask questions, to seek to understand, why did you do this? Why is this happening? But in no way to interfere, because that actually detracts from the success of whoever. So I kind of took the long way around there.
All right. How should commissioners work with the fire chief in a small department?
I think the commissioners are the conduit between the public and the chief. The chief is the on-site expert, okay? If the on-site expert says this, then the first thing that the commissioners need to do is say, okay, why? All right? So if the worst thing a chief can do is just walk out and say, here's what I need. Here's a number. The commissioners need to find out, how did we get to that number? What does this building block? How does that help our community? What is this building block? What is this? This. Because the commissioners are the conduit. They're the communicators to their districts. That's what I believe they should be. I don't know if that's what's in the job description, but I believe that a commissioner is the conduit. They're also the buffer. If the community wants to throw rocks or don't understand, then I think the commissioners need to figure out why they don't understand and then do a better job at communicating. That's my thought.
Okay.
Well, I have another question here, but I think you answered it.
Oh,
What decisions should remain with the chief and the officers? I think you just
yeah, he's the captain of the ship, okay? He's the captain. It's not for me to judge why they're doing it. It's for me to be able to understand why they're doing it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If I understand, then I can defend it, or I can go out and I can carry the banner to help get support for it. I mean, that would be like focusing on the end game when it's the whole journey that is really important, and I think the commissioners have to make that journey.
All right, leadership and judgment. Commissioners make decisions that affect safety, finances, and morale. Describe a time you had to make a difficult or unpopular decision. You can just give us one example.
Dress code.
What is
Dress
that?
code. New contract came in, Anchorage, Alaska, implemented business casual. Because the guys that like to ride their snow machine in, take off all their gear, stand there and work traffic in their long johns. In the town, in the trade, walking around in slippers and long johns. So we put in the dress code. Union rep fires off a letter to two companies, Carhartt and Dickies. To this day, I won't buy Dickies. Here's what happened. I get a call from this gentleman from Carhartt. He says, I got a letter here, and it's signed by the facility rep, and it says, you banned Carhartts in the facility. I said, no. We have business casual. He says, if I have business casual in my catalog,
Can they wear it? I said, yeah. He sent me 350 catalogs, overnight delivery to Anchorage, Alaska at $125 a pound. Boom. 3 weeks later, I got served, had to go to Washington DC because Dickies didn't ask any questions. They jumped to a conclusion and sued us because we banned their wear, which was not true. We banned wearing foul weather gear and underwear in the facility, but they didn't seek to understand. That's the difference, and I think we should be more like the Carhartt management team.
Okay, how do you approach making decisions with incomplete information?
I don't think you can make a decision with incomplete information.
Okay.
Now, there are people that are paid to do that, like the chief. He may not have every answer, but like in a controller's context, when somebody calls in, you can hear in their voice inflection on the radio that maybe something isn't right in that cockpit. That intuition comes from experience. So it's not, so the chief may make a decision based on incomplete information, but he's going with experiential knowledge. I don't think a commissioner should make any decision without complete information or the best information available.
Okay. How do you handle disagreements or pressure in a close-knit community?
Well, that comes to seeking to understand. You have to understand what everybody's buy-in is. Most issues are readily solved through education. How did we get here? Why is my dollar divided into these pieces and what does it do? How does training affect whether I can get homeowners insurance? You can't just go to the end game. So they need to go on the journey with you. And honestly, sometimes they just don't need to take the journey because they won't grasp. And knowing that is difficult.
Okay. Want to take 4?
Yep. Question 4, financial responsibility and oversight. Purpose is to protect limited funds and ensure accountability. What experience do you have with budgets, grants, and financial oversight? You've been giving us a little bit of that.
Yeah. So, in my experience, okay, a $41 million budget. Out of that budget, there were some things I had to pay for. Some equipment is paid for from somebody else's pot. Controllers operate the equipment, they don't own it. Airway facilities own it, so their budget buys the equipment. But as far as building maintenance, education, travel, drug and alcohol awareness programs, community programs and PC&B, paid compensation and benefits. And it's an easy answer. The biggest part of that budget was paid compensation and benefits. That ate up the biggest part of my budget. So that comes around to the success of the organization. An FTE or a full-time employee may cost this amount of money. At what point is it cheaper for me to pay overtime rather than filling a vacancy? And then there comes a time when it's no longer useful because you're using your asset too much. You need to put another asset in there. So those are things that you have to sit down and budget. You have to work strategically. You cannot be reactionary at all on a budget. You must plan forward. You must take into account accelerated costs. So if you're looking at the way we always did it, and this always worked, that's not going to work in 2027. If a simple example, an oil change used to be $39.95. Then we had the pandemic, and now you go down, it's $105, $115 for a Subaru. Okay? So if you take that into account, how is the fire department operating? Are they on this? I don't know the budget. I don't know where we're at. But if you're looking at a budget that you were using pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, or funds that were rattled up and they're depleting, that means that foresight wasn't given to increase the income to cover the operation of the fire department. So you have to be strategic, you have to plan ahead, and you have to go through all the complexities needed to make the watch work. Does that
Yeah,
help?
yeah, thank you.
Well, you probably answered the second question there too. How would you approach approving major purchases or expenses? I gathered that a little bit from what you were just saying.
Well, that comes into strategic thinking because every piece of equipment in a fire department, I imagine, is like an airline. It has a life expectancy. Now, I myself know, as a mechanic, that some things sitting may have 5,000 miles on them, but that doesn't mean that when you fire it up, it's not going to leak from every orifice from lack of use. So you have to sit down, you have to look at your plan, and then that's part of the whole strategic budget. You must look at equipment replacement. You must look at PC&B. You must look at building maintenance. You got to look not only, oh, we got this fire station. Okay, when was the last time it was painted? When was the last time you checked for asbestos? When was the last time the furnace was put in? Those are all things that need to be encompassed in your strategic plan. And I think if you do that plan and people understand, hey, this is bigger than we ever thought, and this is what we've been missing, and this is how we've been doing business, okay, we have to change. So how do we change? That's how I would handle it.
How do you ensure transparency and accountability?
I have nothing to hide because everybody that is there, like I said, somebody could be sitting on the wall and say, I might have a dumb question here, but what happens when I throw the switch? You get good information from everybody. Some information just goes on a shelf for later, but some information has got that aha moment in it. And the more the community can sit and look, the more the community can support what you're trying to do to protect them.
All right, number 5, communication and teamwork. Purpose, the role of this requires working with the chief, the board members, and the public. How do you communicate during disagreements?
The same thing, seek to understand. A disagreement is caused usually because somebody doesn't understand. Or they think they have a better idea, but they're not willing to put it on the table and let you walk around it. what you have to do is you have to understand. And it could be, their issue may not be business oriented. There's a lot of issues that stumble, even in the FAA or government, and you can see it on TV, where somebody has a personal disagreement, or somebody, it could be, hey, that person's kid did a burnout on my lawn, or a lawn job on my lawn, and therefore I don't like them as a parent because they didn't teach their kid right. Those things all come into play. Maybe the person had a bad day. Maybe they just came in and, it was just a bad day. It may not be that they disagree with you. Maybe they just disagree with everything at that point. So you have to seek to understand where they're coming from.
How would you respond to concerns from firefighters or community members?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. How would you respond to concerns from firefighters or community members?
Well, you need to address them. Now, you need to evaluate them. A lot of concerns buffer if the person presenting the concern feels that they were heard, which means that's a commitment from the board, is that, and I believe that the commissioners have a concern. In other words, every piece of this is a concern. If you want it to run perfect, you have to listen to the concerns. Now, some are just complaints. If people have concerns, I also want to know what their recommendation is, because that'll also give you insight to where they're coming from. So if you come in and you say, it's too hot in here, okay, and you're wearing 4 sweaters, we can find out the issue, how to work it. So always seek to understand.
Very good. Okay, Mike, number 6.
Okay, ethics and integrity. Purpose is ensure trust in a small town environment. How would you handle a conflict of interest involving friends and family?
Define the conflict. What do you mean by a conflict of interest? Do you mean like, I own this company and now I'm going to bring my kid in and make him president of the company without any experience? Or I don't know what you mean. I'm trying to...
I guess how much would you involve your family in being a fire commissioner? Would you recommend that they be hired for maybe some position, whether it be a secretary in the office?
No. If there is a hiring process and a competition or benchmarks that have to be met, then I think every candidate should have to meet those benchmarks. Favoritism has no place in the success of any business.
How would you do, what would you do if you believed a board member acted improperly?
I'd take them aside and ask them why. And that is, you have to seek to understand. Maybe they didn't understand that they were acting wrong. And that could come right down to, technically you can't buy a police officer a cup of coffee. Technically you can't do that. I was raised by cops in Seattle. You can't. So sometimes something done in all innocence could be perceived or viewed as improper. So it takes a lifetime to build, to earn trust and integrity from people, and it only takes one action to destroy it. So you have to find out why, because maybe it was in all innocence. If it wasn't, then it needs to be brought and addressed.
Last question here. How do you separate personal relationships from official decisions?
Well, that's pretty straightforward. If you base a personal, you're talking about a business decision? So if you base a business decision based on a personal emotion, I'm going to call it an emotion, you won't be successful for very long. You have to be able to tell your friend, you know what? I can't have you drive my truck because you always end up in the ditch. You cannot, you have to find the best person for the best position. Friend, not friend, it may be somebody that you don't like, but they're very good at what they do. Now you have to figure out how do you make that an asset. But those are the challenges that face commissioners, especially in a volunteer world where people between the age of 20 and 40 were not brought up in an environment where volunteerism was really taught or counseled or pushed at home. You know, they're not taught to open a door for somebody. They're not taught to help somebody who fell. They never learned servitude. So, and that's a challenge nationwide for volunteer. I did a search on how tough it is for fire departments to get volunteers. So that's a national problem.
All right, number 7, we're moving along. Community representation. Commissioners represent both the department and the taxpayers. How do you see your role in representing the community?
In how me represent the community
Yes.
to the fire department or
Yeah,
the
as
fire
a
department to
commissioner.
the community?
So, yeah, as a commissioner, you represent the department and the community, the taxpayers.
Okay,
So how do you see your role in representing the community?
well, that goes back to us being the conduit. A commissioner is a conduit between the fire department and the community. So, you're like a fender. The community's gonna kick up everything because they don't know. They're seeking to find out, oh, hey, I read this on a bathroom wall. What does this mean? Okay, so you take all that in and you sort through it and then you come up so that we can present it back in a palatable manner that's understandable. In other words, no, it could be not true. It could be a rumor. It could be true. It could be something very difficult, like clearing. A good example is everybody's upset about having to put a safe zone around their house, for lack of a better term, just a buffer area. You have to understand, if the more you know about the mission of the fire department, where and how it operates as far as the budget, the justifications for expenses, and then you can address things like, why does it take them 5 minutes longer to respond to me? Or, I don't like this about the fire department. Or, this firefighter insulted me, or something. You're that conduit. So you take that in, you discuss it, come up with a plan. That's why I believe you have 3. 3 minds are better than 1. And then you can go back and address it to the chief, because the chief should address any disciplinary or education issues. And then we would go back, and we don't have to say what happened or that, but just say, yeah, it's been addressed. So there's some things the public absolutely needs to know, but some things they don't. They don't need to know your social security number. They don't need to know if you were put on restriction, but they do know that a disciplinary action happened or whatever, and they should accept that, because that's part of the trust that you build. So it all comes back to the communication.
Okay. I think you just kind of answered the next one, but you could maybe elaborate. How would you help maintain public trust and support for the department? Let's see.
The same thing is, the public can only trust what they believe in. So they have to believe that the commissioners have the best interest of the community in their game plan. So that doesn't mean that the best interest in the community is all brand new fire trucks. You can't afford that. Can't afford a maintenance program probably. We can't afford to put people where we need them, maybe. But that all comes in the strategic planning of a budget. If the budget is right and everything operates as it should, the community will believe more and more and more in the commissioners, their job, the chief, and the firefighters. Because, you know, firefighters inherently are held in awe by most of the community. They don't know anything that goes on behind the scenes. All they see is the truck, the lights, and the guys in the uniform. That's the heroes of America. But what the commissioners have to do is make all that happen so they can go out and do what they do. And they can be safe. You want your firefighters coming back, which means training, PPE or personal protective equipment, functioning equipment, and good leadership. I believe that we're kind of like the managers of a bunch of plates that are spinning, and you just try to make sure that what happens is in the best interest of the community, the best interest of the fire department, and there's a happy medium there at some point. But you have to plan for growth. You have to plan for more vacation rental by owner, VRBOs. As those come in, how many emergency calls do we get for people that don't live here that just came to visit? I don't know the answer to that, but that's one of the questions I have. What is their impact on the operating budget of the fire department? You know, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into the chessboard, onto the chessboard.
What concerns do you think the public has about the department?
I don't know. And the reason I say that is because I've seen some inflammatory stuff on Facebook, and this kind of, and actually that's why I applied, because I said, you know, there's something here that doesn't make sense. And if it's budgetary, and that I have a lot of experience with it, I have a lot of experience with management, with disciplinary, with removing people for alcohol abuse, second chance groups. But business is business. There can't be any emotion in it.
Okay, great.
Number 8, fire service familiarity. Purpose is the role of commissioners is governance and oversight. Fire service is not required. What exposure have you had to the fire and EMS service?
Well, EMS, I was a guinea pig for the paramedic program in Seattle because my stepmother was directly involved at Providence Hospital in cardiac care.
What did that look like?
I got to help play with the first Recessa Annie. I don't know if they still use those, but they're for cardiac care and that. Okay. That was interesting because I had to learn to give shots. They were trying to figure out how to teach somebody to do it. That was just normal, so we used oranges, and I'm terrified of needles to this day. But I will tell you, I have a huge respect because I'd see my stepmother riding on a friggin' fire truck down to Green Lake, and they pull a kid out that drowned, and they bring that kid back. And this all stemmed from her boss always talked about a golden hour. So I learned that. I was an explorer, search and rescue as a kid growing up, so I pulled bodies out of rivers and plane crashes and Ted Bundy's Seattle 7 out of the hill, bagged their hair and all that. So and then firefighting, I did learn and burn in the Navy, Then we had a fire triangle. I don't know if you still use that, but I did know that. I had to do firefighting because I have I had a 100-ton license with the Coast Guard, and I ran a charter company. So I had to go to radar school because I hauled passengers, and I had to go to firefighting every year for shipboard firefighting. In the Navy in Florida, they grabbed our duty section, and we went and fought wildfires down in Florida in our dungarees. And then on Christmas Eve 1979, on my birthday, I got to fight a fire on the Shitty Kitty, which was moored behind us, USS Kitty Hawk. So I got to puke with the rest of them in the smoke trying to put the fire out on that. But as a career firefighter, that's not me. I have not done that as a career.
How do you educate yourself about department operations?
Questions and materials. So a lot would fall on you guys, a lot would fall on the chief. But I'd probably ask a lot of questions of the newest guy on the force. And the reason is, it's all fresh in his mind. And the first thing he's gonna talk about is what he's confused about. Because that's what we all do. We all go with what we know. If we know it, we go with it, whether it's right or wrong. But the resources here. I mean, I've done a lot of research on volunteer staffing and that, so there's other stuff out there, but the operation of this facility would have to come from within, knowledge from within.
What do you think makes a volunteer fire department successful?
Community support. You have the people that put on the protective gear and fight the fire. Or you have people that put on the protective gear and just sit back and save the foundation. I've seen both. In California, the volunteer fire department there was a club, and this fire department, in my interactions with them, has always been very professional, whether it was getting a burn permit, whether it was coming and asking them if I had to get stitches. And they go, yep. So I have a good respect for this fire department. They're always cordial, and they always seem to meet the need.
Number 9, impact on the department. Assess the impact of the commissioner's role on the department. That's the purpose. What do you see as your impact on the department as a commissioner?
Well, I would hope that I could be an asset in the whole growth and longevity of the fire department. I don't think very many people know me here in the valley because I stay pretty much on my property. But I believe that we need to be a trustworthy conduit to the community. Because think about this. The community can come and ask you a question, and you can answer it, or you can get them the answer because you have the time to do it. But if you go to a firefighter who's right in the middle of a training session, or they're trying to do maintenance, or they're trying to do their task, and you ask them, you're probably going to get it's like asking a lineman while he's out there, hey, can you tell me that? They don't have time to talk to you. So our job would be that communication conduit. Because the poor person in the trench, they can probably speak for themselves, but their view is what's in their headlights, and it's not a global perspective. Where I think the commissioners have to have a global perspective of the community, the needs, the challenges that are coming forward, and then how to address that perspective to the community so that they understand and they can embrace what the needs are for them have protection.
And last question. What would you like to see changed in the department?
I do not have an answer for that because I don't see, my interaction with the department has all been a success story. I think what needs to change in the department, I don't think it needs to change in the department. I think the view of the fire department needs to change, not how the fire department is viewed needs to change. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Is because it's easy to throw a lot of bad press out there. It's easy not to have any press out there, and which usually eventually is more successful because people are working instead of bickering, and that would be the best thing to do is to have the fire department viewed and have it as a success story. And I think they're not far from that.
Okay. All right. Well, good. That is, so number 10 on our sheet is general impression. And that's like a EMS term, general impression.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose is overall assessment based on individual observations and responses to the question. So that's a question for us. So we will write some notes on that, think about it, and kind of, these first 9 questions were meant to be very objective. And then we look at that and then we will give kind of a general impression on our own. Again, this is, we don't discuss or we're going to have any deliberations about this. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity, and
You know, if I can be an asset to the community, I'm happy to. You know, that's it.
Do you have any questions of us?
No, I commend you guys. I don't know. I probably don't know enough yet to ask questions as far as the inner workings or anything. And I don't think I have a need to know unless I was selected.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on a second. I just want to, again, thank you for coming out. And I know this is kind of a awkward position, especially you going first. Okay, and so these questions were not given out ahead of time. Sometimes people do that, sometimes they don't. What I felt was this, your prepared resume and all that is something that was taking a lot of time and prepared. And I would like to see, you know, kind of putting you on the spot that just kind of just initial responses to questions I think tend to be more genuine and so forth. So, and you went first, so you didn't get any privy. The other 2 guys got a break because they have a little bit of a. But I don't know that would make that much of a difference.
Everybody gets their day in the hot seat.
So anyway, but I really appreciate that, and it was really nice to meet you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the time.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You were looking at your notes. Okay. All right, let's move on to candidate number 2, Jason Sawin. No, I don't think he opened it. Here, I can swap that.
I got one right here. I got my own stuff.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, yeah, again, thank you for coming. Really appreciate, you know, it's coming to interview for its volunteer position, and yeah, it's taking time out of your day and sitting through. We just really do appreciate all that. So
Thank you very much for having me and making this open public meeting for everybody to witness this, because having 3 applicants is very unusual.
Yeah, it is. I was the only applicant when I,
Mhm.
and stepped up because there were no applicants, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That shows that there's more interest, so.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, good. So, yeah, we'll do the same questionnaire
Okay.
that we have, so you kind of have an idea of how to go through it and stuff. But I'm going to remember this time, I want you to give just kind of a synopsis of your background as much as you feel like you want to share in this portion, and then we can, as we go through the other categories, you can add stuff, and then,
Okay.
we'll make sure we get it all in,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I did prepare a statement for this, so
Oh,
I'll
okay.
read that. It addresses most of the questions, either a little bit or quite a bit. So if you feel like stopping me, go ahead, and clarification or more questions about.
Well, whatever you feel like, you can read that, and then we'll still go through all the questions, and you can add, yeah. Sure.
I've been a resident of Garden Valley for 10 years now. I've been at the same address for about 9 years, so definitely qualify for the residency of 1 year. I bring 25 years of firefighting experience. 15 years I was a paramedic as well, and I was part of 4 departments, including Garden Valley Fire, for 3 years. And over those, I got my start as a firefighter in 1993 at Steamboat Springs Fire in Colorado as a volunteer. And so that was my first experience as a volunteer department. It was very different back then because it was a lot easier to get volunteers. I was hired also as an engineer for Eagle River Fire Protection District for 1 year. So I was actually at both departments for a year. Then I was hired at West Metro Fire on the west side of Denver in 2001, and I was there for nearly 15 years before we moved here 10 years ago. I was a paramedic at West Metro Fire. Steamboat Springs went to the voters 3 or 4 times after I left to go from volunteer to paid and combine the ambulance district into one. So it was, I saw it from a distance, and it was a very challenging time for that community to be able to make this change. Much bigger resort town than we are, of course, but still witnessing that was kind of a difficult thing to see the rejection from the voters multiple times. Eagle River Fire, it was actually Avon Fire, and they went to the voters one time to become a fire protection district and combine multiple contracted districts into one. They went one time and had success with it, so that was wonderful. West Metro Fire, right around the beginning of the recession, went to the voters for a millage increase and a bond to rebuild stations. And they were able to get it. The transparency and public input and everything, it was pretty substantial to see. And it was really amazing to be part of a process like that. You know, a much larger department than Garden Valley Fire, 15 stations and several hundred firefighters. Observing and participating in these 3 fire departments when they went to the voters is very valuable for my experience to come here as a appointed commissioner, because I saw what succeeded and what failed. The last 3 months, I've done extensive research into GVFD's financials and history spanning up to the last 5 years. I know and understand the nationwide challenges volunteer fire departments are facing with the decrease in people stepping up to volunteer. I also understand the need to decrease the response time, and I see the benefits of the paid on-call test program that occurred over the last 2 to 3 years by decreasing that response time. Sometimes complex challenges need to be simplified, and I can divide Garden Valley Fire into 2 categories related to financials. So labor and equipment. And one can't do their job without the other. Both have to work together and both have to be strong to support the community. The paid on-call test program was paid for with reserves, as best as I can tell. These reserves, I believe, were in the capital investment fund, which by the end of fiscal year 2026, which we're in now, appear they will be depleted. Essentially, the annual budget was operating at a deficit budget because the reserves were being used and not a sustainable plan without the mill levy increase that was voted down in November. The November ballot issue focused on labor, and I didn't feel that there was any focus on some of the other things, and maybe if it had passed, that the equipment side of things could have been taken care of, but, yeah. The ballot measure that was announced just on Tuesday at the regular meeting also seems to address the labor issue as the goal, and I believe it was stated it's going to be about 40% of the first levy vote from November. The details of this measure have not been made public, and is stated that the attorney is still working on it. It was also stated the two commissioners are on board with the levy. Prior to the February regular meeting, fire commissioners meeting, no mention of a new levy was made to the public, yet the commissioners were aware of it. So the newly appointed commissioner will be coming in on the heels of the new proposed levy with virtually no input, but I have enough background to hit the ground running in regards to this. I believe one piece of the labor volunteer solution can be adopting NFPA 1010 for support of members. This allows for less training for members to perform tasks that are not in hazardous environments. So basically, they're not going to be putting on an air pack and going in with the nozzle on fire. The current minimum requirements for GVFD members for training hours and percentage of on-call or call response is a high standard many qualified residents of Garden Valley may not be able to meet. I know that personally I could not meet the responses and everything because, you know, I have my own business that I travel to. By adopting NFPA 1010, these new supportive positions, volunteer positions, will increase some expenses for equipment and training. When a plan and budget is to be established, a fundraising program can be created to purchase the additional equipment to fast track it. This is an option to improve volunteerism. So the budget for capital investment funds in recent years has primarily been paid to pay for the lease of the new tender 821 and ambulance medic. The 2025 budget only paid for the leases, which was about $63,000, property tax $135, but a budget of $21,000 for 4 other line items was not spent. My biggest concern about not spending the money on equipment or replenishing the reserves has to do with the apparatus replacements of the future. The Garden Valley Fire Apparatus Report from January 3rd, 2023 appears to be the last full report about the apparatus. Since this report was completed, 2 major changes have occurred. It was stated at the report that Rescue 831 needs to be replaced. It was sold without a replacement plan. At a later date, engine 804's pump failed in an annual test, and the expense to repair or replace the pump was too great, and was decided not to spend the money. Engine 804 was converted to become the Rescue. Since engine 804 is no longer considered an engine, GVFD doesn't have a second backup engine. There has been a discussion of using 821 as the second engine since it has a high-capacity water pump similar to 803. This is not the ideal situation because using it as an engine removes its primary role as a water tender to shuttle water to a fire scene. It is also much heavier than an engine, and bridge weight limits in Garden Valley restrict its access. This is not a long-term solution. In the apparatus summary, there's a discussion of replacing engine 831 with a mini pumper. Engine 804 with a mini pumper, sorry about that. It is also stated an apparatus committee has been formed. The purpose of the apparatus committee appears to, in quotes, help monitor and manage equipment, which will help in reducing costs by doing most of the maintenance in-house, unquote. The summary also states, in quotes, looking forward over the next several years, replacing a medic unit, a command unit, and possibly an engine is the only major cost in the foreseeable future heading into the end of this decade, looking at the expenditure, large expenditures. We're 3 years now past that. Since this report, with the depletion of the reserves of the Capital Investment Fund and engine 804 pump failing, I haven't seen any discussions with the plan for engine 804 replacement since 2023. I may have missed it in the meeting minutes, but it hasn't been a hot topic. With the exception of the existing buildings all in good condition today, I knew a fire engine can be the greatest capital expense this department will see in the near future. For reference, 803, the yellow four-wheel drive engine, frontline engine, was purchased new in 2005 for $237,000. Tender 821 purchased new in 21 prior to rapid inflation, with an annual lease of $36,821 over the course of 8 years, roughly totals $294,000. I was unable to find the purchase price for it though in any records. Prior to 2020, a new fire engine was roughly between $500,000 and $700,000. Today, that same fire engine is over $800,000 due to inflation. Used fire apparatus are much more affordable, but they come with a higher repair price tag over the years, as has been experienced with engine 804. GVFD has a difficult financial road ahead. I understand the need to go to the voters in May for an approved levy increase so funds are available in fiscal year 27. Instead of waiting until the November 26th election, which would delay the funds until fiscal 2028. I am concerned that what might be proposed for the May election may not adequately address the need for apparatus replacement in the near future and replenishing the reserves. There are 3 critical items to address here as commissioners. Financials for the stipends and on-call pay, increase local volunteers for a greater depth of response, address the apparatus replacement needs. In the last few months, with all my extensive research to find solutions for GVFD, I spearheaded a state bill to provide tax deductions for volunteer firefighters and EMTs. It is called the Idaho Volunteer Firefighter Act, and is making its way through the review process right now. As of this morning, I learned IDL, Idaho Department of Lands, is reducing the number of seasonal firefighters, and there is a greater push to get this bill in front of our representatives for a vote. Now this is a time to open the door for wider for additional volunteers. I want to be part of this challenging process to help direct the Garden Valley Fire Protection District on a sustainable path to serve the residents and guests of Garden Valley decades into the future. I also want to mention, as the founder of the Garden Valley Citizens Committee, I will step away from that role if appointed as Subdistrict 3 Commissioner. And then I'll close with this statement and then answer your questions. Elected officials serve as at the will of the public and are entrusted with the public funds and decision-making authority. With that trust comes an obligation to operate transparently and to accept reasonable scrutiny, including public records requests and open examination of their actions. Accountability is not hostility, it is a fundamental part of representative government.
Great, thank you. You probably hit a lot of the questions that we're gonna ask, but it's okay, we'll go through them as well, and then
Can I ask you a question before we go? And you alluded to it just a minute ago, Jason.
Yes.
And thanks for that presentation. You had some goals for the fire commission position that you put down as your goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need a little bit more understanding of the Volunteer Firefighters Act.
Yes.
And you mentioned that it would be tax deductions for firefighters?
Correct, for state income taxes.
Yeah. What does that look like? I need a bigger picture.
Okay, so I spearheaded it. I actually mentioned it to Chief Cleveland, last spring about an idea to give volunteers tax incentives through the state. We can't do it federally, but we can have influence on state. And so basically, volunteers, and I'm trying to remember how it's been worded because it's been through multiple hands at this point. But a volunteer, you gotta meet the definition of a volunteer as a firefighter or EMT. And so as far as like stipends and that stuff goes, I believe it's under 20% of the pay of what a paid firefighter would be. And so that these people can submit on their taxes for a deduction of, don't know how much. That's basically up to our legislatures, from hundreds of dollars to whatever they want. There were some estimates of, it could cost the state $400,000+. So with budget cuts right now, that's not very likely, but it also can help address the needs that our rural communities in the state have of lack of volunteerism and stuff, because we all know with stipends and paid on call and whatever it's called now, that helps to offset the expenses that volunteers have. As I realized that too, almost 3 years I volunteered here, that was before stipends, and it did take a financial toll as far, in my own business. When I was a volunteer in Steamboat back in the 90s, I got a $20 a call stipend, and I was able to do a lot of fun things with that. So,
Thanks.
does that
Yeah,
answer?
that covered. Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah, so we'll go through the questions. Commitment and availability. Purpose to ensure realistic availability for small volunteer-based department. Why are you interested in serving as fire commissioner? Okay. You told us that already, okay. How much time can you realistically commit each month?
So with our business, I do travel quite a bit, but I can schedule my travel most of the time. Besides a trade show that, a few trade shows I attend out of state each year and stuff that are usually on a couple of days. Everything else I can schedule around monthly meetings, or if I have to, I might have to call in for the meeting as well. And as far as like on a weekly basis, when I came out in November, and I had concerns about the what was proposed to the voters. Before I stated that, I'm like, I'm going to have to get into this and commit a lot to it, and I have. And digging into records, it takes a lot of time and understanding. But to go forward, I can't put a time frame on it because I work when I say I work all the time, it doesn't matter if it's my business around the property or researching stuff like the records and understanding. But I have a lot of time this spring to devote to this. And just on the side note, the 24th, I will most likely still be in Montana. I've got a contract job next week up there. I won't be in town for that day. After I get back, I have virtually no travel plans.
Are you able, oh, you just said that. Are you able to attend regular meetings and be available when urgent issues arise?
Yeah.
Yes.
Usually if I'm not in town, by phone, yes, for sure.
Okay. Understanding the commissioner role. Commissioners govern, they do not run calls or micromanage operations, is the purpose of this question. What do you believe is the primary responsibilities of the fire commissioner are?
The commissioners are the representatives of the people, the taxpayers of Garden Valley. And so it's that go between the chief and the citizens. And so I don't take that lightly, just like the statement I read. And as far as open meeting laws and things like that commissioners can't speak between each other without, a formal meeting. And so it's one thing of crossing paths in the market or something and saying hi in a small community, but the voters should have and the taxpayers have a way to communicate with the individual commissioners of their subdistrict to be able to bring it to, the meeting so that the individual commissioner can add it to the agenda and bring it up and discuss it in the public format. And of course, the citizens can always go to the fire chief too as another avenue.
Okay. How should commissioners work with the fire chief in a small department?
I believe that each commissioner should have regular meetings with the chief. And they can determine what regular is. But not having a line of communication, what that does is you don't know what the right hand and the left hand are doing. And so having an understanding of what the chief sees as the challenges within the department, from an individual call to the budget, to future needs, things like that, to have an understanding outside of the public meetings so that it can be brought up in the meetings amongst the commissioners, I think is very important.
Good. What decisions should remain with the chief and the officers?
The day-to-day operations, of course, is all about the chief. He runs the department, and it's his thing. Our duty, as a commissioner, would be to give him the tools that he needs, and that's a budget, that is planning, as far as finances for equipment, apparatus, replacements, things like that. So day-to-day shouldn't be involved, but having a knowledge of what the day-to-day operations are, observing from a distance is important.
Well, you go again.
You go again. You go next.
Number 3? All right, leadership and judgment. Commissioners make decisions that affect safety, finances, and morale. Describe a time you had to make a difficult or unpopular decision.
So, thinking back to as a firefighter, sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions. Now, I was never an officer, but I did respond, like say on an ambulance, sometimes first on scene, and I'd have to take that incident command until an officer arrived. Fortunately, I didn't have to make a life and death decision. It was just a matter of getting things lined up and the plan established. But there comes times when a significant fire or something like that, especially in a rescue, like what do you rescue, affect a possible rescue here, or do you save or stop the fire over here that could, let's just theoretically say it's the nursing home. One individual you could save right now, but it might start the fire on that building, and which could have more victims. That's, a scenario of a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, I have not had to decide to make a decision on, but you have to use your best judgment, your experience, your knowledge, and try to lean on the people that are around you that might be able to be like, say, we can stop it. If it starts on the outside of that structure, we can stop it inside and still evacuate those people. Great, let's go for this rescue. Those are the type of decisions that obviously are quick, but long-term decisions, you need where you can take some more time to process things and stuff like that. I think that you need as much information for those difficult decisions before you make them. But if it's a quick decision, you've got to make the best decision you can with an estimation of what your results are. But definitely don't make the mistake of that decision again once we get all the information.
Helps in this next one. If you have anything more to add, you can. How do you approach making decisions with incomplete information?
Yeah, so I guess as far as commissioners go, you have a little bit of time to gather information. So because you got the regular meetings, monthly meetings, but just like having the special meetings like today, still you have 24 hours to decide and stuff. So it's like, if we got to stay up late, I'm going to dig in and try to find as much information, because I don't want to make a decision because it's a quick time frame without the information. I'd rather make the best decision with as much information as I can get.
How do you handle disagreements or pressure in a close-knit community?
So obviously there's been a lot of that in the last few months. Communication is key. Without communication, you don't know what that person's thinking, planning, doing, working on, or stuff like that. And so that's the biggest thing, is communication. You got to be able to sit down, talk openly, discuss things, listen, and don't make rash decisions, don't accuse, and just really keep the tone on more of a calm, tone, not no yelling and screaming and things like that. But so as far as public goes, you got to listen. Sometimes the most vocal, loudest voices are not the majority. Sometimes the quiet voices are the majority.
Thank you.
Did I do 2 in a row? The first 2?
Go ahead, you do.
No, so you
number
do,
4
you
then.
do 4. I did 2, you
Oh.
do 2, then we'll go back.
All right,
Losing track.
we're not gonna fight about that.
Sorry.
Financial responsibility and oversight, purposes protect limited funds and ensure accountability. What experience do you have with budgets, grants, or financial oversight?
So we've had our business, we started in 2002. And so it's been my wife and I and son is now involved. And so our budget's not very large, and it can be difficult to manage because like our businesses, the trucks that I have are important, and upkeep is important stuff. But sometimes things go wrong, and then all of a sudden you got a huge expense that is a substantial percentage of your overall, revenue and budget. And not much different than Garden Valley Fire Department. It's a small budget, really. And so a little tweak here and there can really cause difficulty down the road. So it's not like right now that without a tax increase that to recover the reserves quickly, it's not something that will happen. It takes time. And so, but some of these big expenses, say like engine 803s, throws a rod out the side of the engine, those things are probably, that replacement engine's probably $50,000. That's a pretty substantial hit. So planning ahead and putting money away in reserves so that it can be grabbed quickly and easily to get a piece of equipment back in service or whatever it is very important. As far as like grants, I've never written grants. I have seen the results. I've seen and read a lot of different, grants that we as our community has benefited from. There's the thing that my biggest concern about grants is what strings are attached. And so some are great, especially on equipment, because it's usually a matching grant. So that's the string attached. Labor grants have different strings attached that sometimes can be difficult to maintain. And so I don't recall the name of a grant several years ago, but it was, I believe during the recession, to be able to hire some additional firefighters because most fire departments were cutting budgets and stuff like that, so hiring was way down. But there was federal grants, but after like 3 years, it would decline to where the fire department had to step up and then ultimately pay 100%. So that's one of the strings attached that you got to plan for long term.
All right, how would you approach approving major purchases or expenses?
You can't plan for everyone, but you've got to have some money there in reserves, as I've mentioned a few times. So that is literally setting aside money that you can use, for a short term or that big purchase, but it's got to be replenished at some point because, if it's getting a lease like we have on the tender and ambulance right now to pay for it until it's paid off and owned versus say a bond levy, or I'm sorry, a bond to like a loan to purchase or build a new fire station or something like that. Those are all things that you've got to every year be putting some money in, especially replenishing it if you use it, but having kind of that reserve account I think is really important though for long-term big purchases.
How do you ensure transparency and accountability?
Posting meeting minutes, agendas, and financials on the website, I think is the quickest and easiest way to do it. As I've been doing a lot of research and through our records request, a lot of departments do that. Now granted, it takes some time as far as somebody doing the website and stuff like that, but it can also save time on the backside by not getting those records requests because they're readily available. And then people can go and access that information. So the people that don't speak up much and stuff might want to have an understanding, but they may not want to do a records request. But if they can go to the website and see the financials for the last few years, then they can have a better understanding, and that might just, calm some of the public concerns and stuff right there.
Thank you.
Number 5, communication and teamwork. Purpose, the role requires working with the chief, the board members, and the public. How do you communicate during disagreements?
So you have to go back to listening. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth, okay? Listen. And so with the public, sometimes their comments may be like, I don't understand what you mean by that. And, or I could research that some more and get back with you, things like that, because I wouldn't want to come off like I know all the answers, but I might have to go to the chief to confirm or, see what the citizen might be talking about. So having that open line of communication beforehand with the chief through just some regular meetings and stuff and building that relationship is obviously pretty important with that. If somebody has a disagreement, say yells at me or something like that, I'll stand there and listen. I'll take notes, and I'll try to, maybe schedule a meeting with them at a later date, to address their concerns and grievances.
How would you respond to concerns from firefighters or community members?
So community members have should have direct contact to the commissioners. Firefighters, on the other hand, it's a chain of command. And so even though most of our firefighters are citizens here and they're voting and they're paying the taxes, there is that chain of command. And so they do have the Firefighters Association, which I know that they could talk amongst themselves and then bring it up to the chief as far as like how they would directly contact the commissioners. But personally, I think that should probably go through the chief. And then I do believe that commissioners should probably attend trainings every now and then so that the firefighters know their commissioners. That way, but then the commissioners also see and understand the firefighters and what their skill set is, ability, their challenges, their training, what their gear looks like. Because if the bunker gear is getting worn out and torn and stuff like that, I think as a commissioner I'd be like, we better look at bumping that up on a budget for next year for replacement.
Okay.
Okay. Number 6, ethics and integrity. Ensure trust in a small town environment. How would you handle a conflict of interest involving friends or family?
So my son Noah is a volunteer with Silver Creek Plunge. He works up there, so it's totally awesome when he told me that he became a volunteer firefighter. So there's no conflict there, but it's still having family involved in a volunteer organization such as a fire department is actually pretty common. And my wife's from Tennessee, and a lot of departments there are volunteer, and it's a different environment back east, and it's more of a family. But if I was a commissioner and my son was a firefighter, I would, back to my previous answer, I couldn't have really the conversations with him would have to be very limited because he should go through chain of command.
What would you do if you believed a board member acted improperly?
I wouldn't be able to talk to that board member directly because it would be an open meeting law possible violation. I might direct my concerns to the chief to let it be known, and then possibly add something to the agenda. I think that's a very difficult thing to stay within the law, yet not throw the other commissioner under the bus. Be very difficult.
How do you separate personal relationships from official decisions?
Well, you got to be black and white sometimes, because commissioners are about community and representing the community, not individuals. So it could be hard, but it has to be done. Or there's 3, maybe that commissioner recuses himself.
Thank you.
All right, number 7, community representation. Commissioners represent both the department and the taxpayers. How do you see your role in representing the community?
Well, through my experience, 25 years, obviously that benefits in certain ways to the department. And so, repeat your question again because I may have misunderstood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Community representation. Commissioners represent both the department and the taxpayers. How do you see your role in representing the community, on the taxpayer
Yeah.
side?
Okay, so, yeah, my experiences as a firefighter gives me that benefit of those type of experiences or knowledge base and stuff like that. But if there's other areas, if it's political or if it's some financial stuff or like the tax assessor, the Boise County tax assessor who ultimately, figures out how much money we get, that I would want to educate myself if I don't know the answers. I'm not just going to say, oh yeah, this is how it is, when I'm not sure. So I want to be able to answer as a representative of the fire department factual information to the citizens. And then the citizens have concerns, I need to be able to gather that information to bring it to the fire department. And it could be either directly to the chief, if it's something that he can easily address, or if it has to come up to the commissioners.
Okay. How would you help maintain public trust and support for the department?
The transparency first, that's, stuff on the website, make it easy access, so that people that have concerns might be able to find the answers there. And say the statement or question again, just to make sure I'm not missing.
How would you help maintain public trust and support for the department?
So the transparency is first. Second part is being visible. So getting out there. So being subdistrict 3, the south end of the district, I'd have to look into the legality of this, but can I do like just a meet and greet without the other 2 commissioners, but just say, hey, here's your District 3 sub-commissioner or Subdistrict 3 commissioner, meet with the public that way, and so that I can bring stuff to the other commissioners in a public meeting. And so that would really build trust. It goes back to the communication part. So I know what the taxpayers are thinking, knowing questions, concerns, all of that. You have to, it is a political position. You do have to get out there and see what, and meet and greet with people.
Okay. What concerns do you think the public has about the department?
I think financially is a big concern. Because the challenges that Garden Valley Fire with growth, decrease in volunteerism, limited budgets is not unique to us. We do have some other unique things. We're an island. We're surrounded by mountains and public land. We will continue to grow, but that growth could stop someday because of the public lands around us and the lack of a central sewer system. So that's why we don't have big townhomes, condos, and apartment complexes. So I think that we have to, look long-term and make sure that we're not over-planning, because to go all career fire department may not be an option. We're always going to rely on volunteers here because to have enough property value, to have enough tax money coming in to pay for, career paid firefighters, EMTs, and like the paramedic side of things, that's a very expensive endeavor. I know we're not talking about that, but I just wanted to bring it up. We need to have good EMTs, and we need to give them the tools. But Let's see, did I answer
Yeah.
that question?
Yeah.
All right. You've covered some ground here, but we'll go over it again. Fire service familiarity. The role of commissioners is governance and oversight. Fire service is not required. What exposure have you had to the fire EMS service?
So, first, 1993 was when I first entered the fire service, 21 years old in Steamboat. Within a few years, I became firefighter one through the training and stuff like that. A few years later, went to college classes to get my EMT basic, and also ski patrol at the same time. But then in 2002, after I was hired at West Metro Fire, went through their fire academy and stuff, I went through paramedic school that was provided by West Metro Fire, 6-month, very intensive program, incredible program. Was on very busy ambulances for my 15 years there. So, and then when we moved here 10 years ago, and this is a problem that I had as far as being able to volunteer here, and Chief had as well, since he was a paramedic, is transferring your license from another state into Idaho. The only way to do that currently is if you're a national registry. And I had been before, and I dropped it like 5 years before I left West Metro. And that's another one of those things that I've looked at for spearheading some sort of legislation through the state, so that people that come here, retired firefighters or somebody that wants to move, that has a paramedic license, even an EMT basic, you can't do that. You'd have to go through the whole class, as far as I understand. So that was kind of off on a little trail, but still, it's things that I think about long-term, that it's a possible solution, that's a statewide solution.
Okay. So in your 25 years, how much was volunteer versus paid?
I was basically 16 years paid, so 1 year with Eagle River Fire, 15 at West Metro, almost 3 years
So
volunteer
you got a
here.
pretty good balance then.
Yeah, 7
Okay.
years volunteer at Steamboat.
Okay. How do you educate yourself about department operations?
Done a lot of that the last few months. So I knew the operations from before, for those nearly 3 years. So I understood the challenges, I experienced them firsthand of lack of water resources, lack of not as many volunteers or people on a fire, things like that. Difficulty accessing certain areas in the winter especially. And recently it's been mainly meeting minutes, financials, coming to meetings, and stuff like that.
What do you think makes a volunteer fire department successful?
Well, leadership, of course. So that's commissioners and chief, working together for a common goal. Everybody has input, and look at the different options, possibilities, solutions, things like that, and then getting buy-in from the firefighters themselves too. And then having good community support too. We're too small of a community to start taking sides and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Number 9, impact on the department. Assess the impact of a commissioner role on the department. What do you see as your impact on the department as a commissioner?
So my 25 years of experience, both firefighter and then paramedic, is 15 years in EMT. Prior to that, gives me that understanding and knowledge, and being in the back of an ambulance for an hour drive to the hospital, it is a challenge. 3-4 hours round trip from the time of call until you're home. I understand that. That takes a toll. So those burdens need to be spread out. And right now with like 30 members, and roughly 16 or 17 or so being residents, the rest of the Boise area recruits. And I had stated the depth of response. And so when you get a fire or you get 2 significant calls at the same time, we don't have a lot of people at the time. Somebody could be out of town, could be medical leave, whatever, that we have to build that up. And back to the NFPA 1010, if we were to increase our members to say 40 or whatever is chosen, and have those supportive roles, so that could be pulling hose, that could be driving the ambulance, things like that. That's going to spread that load out across more people, and so that not the same people are always going down, driving the ambulance down, or you know, somebody's like, I'm tired, or you know what, I would like to go out, have a date night, you know, have a beverage or something like that. It just, you got to spread it out more. And it's been very difficult with the decline in volunteerism in the country to do that, and the burden is more put on less shoulders. As far as you have familiarity, or no, that was the previous one. So as far as the commissioner, those are the type of things that you know, I would like to look at, and then like apparatus replacement, and to make sure we're not getting caught behind the ball.
Just a second. Okay. What would you like to see change in the department?
Kind of the NFPA 1010. I've read it. I haven't got to discuss it with others. But Chapter 5 is all about the supportive members that don't need to have necessarily have bunker gear and stuff like that. I feel like there's still people in this community, and in the future probably, that could and would step up if they didn't have so many time constraints, you know, as far as training goes and stuff, because not everybody can do the job of firefighter. Granted, I know not everybody, every volunteer here is trained to the level of interior fire attack, but I do think that it could separate out, and NFPA 1010 allows that. That would be something to look at, investigate, put numbers to, and figure out if that is a solution.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions. The next one is, again, the general impression that we'll put in there. Yeah, so anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. I think I appreciate this. This is my first time ever doing anything like this.
Me too.
So, yeah, and we love our community. We almost moved to Tennessee in 19, and then went, no, we're staying in Garden Valley. So we're here for the long term, and love it here. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Any questions for us?
No. If, well, I guess just on the 24th, if you need to call me or whatever, since if I'm still in Montana, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Justin Talbert.
Present.
And again, so yeah, if you want to tell a little bit about yourself, or as much as you want about yourself and your experience and background and what have you, and then we'll go through all the questions again, and you can add things as you need to, and just want to make sure that, yeah, same routine. Tell us, don't be shy. Brag about yourself. Okay.
I've never known him to be shy.
Well, that's true. That's true. After graduating high school and part of the way through high school, I did construction work. I did construction throughout college. My second year into my associate's degree in business administration, I actually got offered a job in business administration as a store manager for a retail shoe store, which I thought was pretty cool. I finally get to use my brain a little bit and less of my body. So I worked for Journey Shoes for about 4 years. Started as an assistant manager, working up to store manager, and then area manager. While I was area manager, I went through their training program to become a corporate auditor. which basically is somebody that corporate would send in to do audits. Every store gets audited twice a year. Oftentimes it's just their district manager that will come in and do it. However, with a corporate auditor, they pull somebody from a different district that isn't as closely tied with the district, and I guess is less likely to falsify anything. So instead of just auditing the stores in my district, which was like Memphis, Tennessee, down to Louisiana, there's about 14 stores in our district, they would actually call me and send me to, there was a store in Minot, I went and had to go audit. So I spent time doing that. Then I left that position, moved to Idaho in 2013. Moved out here to be closer to family, to see what the snow was about. We don't get a whole lot of that down in the south. Plan was to be here for a year and then go back home and go back to Memphis. That was, I think, 14 years ago, no, 11 years ago. It's been some years. Needless to say, I'm not going back. Came out here, got on with the company doing construction again. Turned out I didn't like sitting in an office as much as I thought I did. Got on with the company doing construction, Castle Mountain Homes. I started as a helper. I worked there for about 8 years. When I left, I was a project manager overseeing projects that I would go out and bid, schedule. On those jobs, I would basically make my own budget, talk with the customer, set a budget, do all the scheduling, keep track of what money went where throughout the project to make sure we made deadlines and got stuff completed, while also communicating with the subordinates, those working directly for me, or subcontractors, and the homeowners as well, to make sure everybody was in communication and everything was passed efficiently so that we can maintain that profitable and good experience for the customers and for the company. Then I went and spent some time, after that I spent some time at Project Patch, where I worked closely with, did maintenance there for a while. And then I actually worked with teams. I took a position as an assistant dorm director in the boys' dorm. Really enjoyed that. That kind of gave me a taste for the giving back. You don't know a whole lot about Patch. They do pay people, but they don't pay people a whole lot. So it is very much, there's a lot of giving to help make that place go around. I really got to see that and how good it feels to make a difference by helping others who can't necessarily help themselves. Which is kind of why I wanted to apply for this position. Not with Patch, but I think this would give a pretty good idea. Or the same, kind of the same feeling of giving back and being helpful to the community. Let me see, I took, drew blank. I'm currently employed with a company that does defensible space here in Garden Valley. So I'm pretty local, live and work here, pretty much always around. We're doing a lot of defensible space, which is kind of on the fire side, helping spread awareness for fire-wise activities, kind of help people protect their investments. I think that's a pretty valuable skill that could be used here on the commissioner side as well. Most of the positions I've been in, I've used lots of computers. I don't know a whole lot of programming, but Excel, PowerPoint, I've got a pretty good knowledge of computer stuff. I felt like that might be beneficial. It sounded like Ms. Clevenberg did quite a bit of your guys' computer stuff. So I think that's something I could bring to the table and hopefully help out with.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working at a facility Project Patch, we deal with a lot of at-risk teens. You can't help but take a look at yourself by being there. And what did you take away from there for yourself, personally?
I would say I saw a lot of myself in some of the kids that I worked with. Behaviors, mannerisms, learned how people saw closely, I would say, how people handle adversity differently. I've gone through things in my life that a lot of the kids I've worked with have gone through too. And they reacted one way, and I reacted a different way. I didn't end up in a residential treatment care facility. I was lucky enough, I think, to have the guidance or willpower or whatever to make better choices. I think being in that situation and coming out in a different position helped while being there to kind of impart some of that wisdom on my experiences.
How long were you there?
I think 3 years,
Okay.
right about 3 years.
And how long were you a volunteer firefighter?
I was a volunteer firefighter in Garden Valley from 2000, I think January of 2017 to 2020, so I think like 3 years, right about 3 years. When I was here, I think we did the Essentials 1 class, and I actually took the EMT class while I was here.
How'd that work out?
It went well. I really enjoyed EMT stuff. I finished my not the written, I did the practical exam, but wasn't able, I ended up leaving the department before I was able to go take my written test.
All right, Phil.
Okay, and
I can talk slower too if I need
I can't write faster, because the faster I write, I can't read it. So, okay, so number one, commitment and availability. Ensuring realistic availability for a small volunteer-based department. Why are you interested in serving as fire commissioner?
I feel that there seems to be a communication break, I feel like, between the community and the commissioners, or even the department. I would very much like to help in bringing knowledge to the community. Like Mike said, I'm fairly loquacious, so I don't mind talking to people. I actually enjoy it. So I feel like that'd be a really good spot to be in, get the knowledge and pass that on to those in the community who need it or want it, while helping fill a role in the community, kind of do some giving back and provide the skills I have.
Okay. How much time can you realistically commit each month?
Initially looking, kind of basing my thoughts on what it seems like you guys is required, I had planned on about 20 hours a month. But I understand that I'm new, or I would be new, and there would be quite a bit more in the beginning, I'm sure. I'm sure there are rules for me to read and things for me to brush up on, so I had planned on probably double that, if not more, at least the first several months to get myself caught up to where I can be a beneficial member of the team.
Are you able to attend regular meetings and be available when urgent issues arise?
Absolutely. Like I said, I do live here in Garden Valley, right on Highway 17. I work in Garden Valley. I try not to go to Boise if I don't have to. So I'm pretty much always around. I am a millennial, so my phone is usually not very far from me. If I can't be reached in person, I can almost always be reached via phone.
Number 2, understanding of the commissioner role and purposes. Commissioners govern, they do not run calls or micromanage operations. What do you believe the primary responsibilities of a fire commissioner are?
I believe communication would be the primary role from the commissioner team and the chief to the public. Keeping communications open so that the public can know what's happening, while also taking into account the needs of the public, and keeping that in mind when decisions are needed to be made. Taking into account the needs of the chief, who is going over the department directly and knows the direct needs. So helping the chief and the community to grow the department as best we can while maintaining open communication.
How should commissioners work with the fire chief in a small department?
Closely, I would say. We've got to have a good relationship with the chief. I mean, he is the person that has been found, that is taking care of our guys. He's looking over our training. He's got the knowledge that is needed to run the department. So we need as a commissioner, a relationship I feel needs to be established with the chief to facilitate his goals along with the taxpayers' goals. Take into account, he sees what's going on. He's been on, in our case, he's been on a large department. So he may have his own idea of what we need to do in the future and goals set. So I think being able to have that relationship where you can get the information from the chief, once again, and communicate it to the public, and make educated decisions based on the information you're getting from the chief, information we're getting from other commissioners, and the information from the public.
We probably answered some of that on this one. What decisions should remain with the chief and the officers?
Best I can tell, pretty much everything that happens inside this building and on calls is at the chief's discretion. I feel like fire commissioner-wise, there would be involvement in maybe how large quantities of money is spent, where stuff like maybe shopping around for stuff, maintenance, who's going to take care of maintenance, stuff like that maybe falls to the commissioners, just to help keep an idea or keep transparency and make sure the money's being spent as well as possible. But I don't think the commissioner has a whole lot of business telling the chief who should run what calls and how many people he needs to have staffed. I feel like that would fall to him, unless there's some crazy training provided as a commissioner.
All right, 3, leadership and judgment. Commissioners make decisions that affect safety, finances, and morale. Describe a time you had to make a difficult or unpopular decision.
I would say requiring people to come into work on days that they weren't necessarily planning to. An example, when I was at Journeys, we had a pretty big loss prevention issue. We actually found a guy on camera walking out with copious amounts of shoes, just boxes and boxes. So we had to get an audit done quickly on, what was it? I guess it was the night before Thanksgiving, because we didn't want to work on Thanksgiving, but we had a big Black Friday sale. So I had a team of like 20 people, and I ended up having to keep I had to keep all of the managers back to get everything counted and get it finished. And that was not very popular, because nobody wanted to be there.
How do you approach making decisions with incomplete information?
From my experience, I have never known that my information was incomplete until afterwards. I feel like usually we make a decision with all the information we can. seek out wisdom from the others on the board or the chief when it comes to making a decision like that. And I would make the best decision I could with the information given. However, I am not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. So when new information is provided, if a decision has to be made or changed, I feel that can take place if needed.
Okay. How do you handle disagreements or pressure in a close-knit community?
I think you've heard me say this already. Open communication, I think, is key, especially directly with the person. You might not know this, but I am actually on Facebook, but you don't see me post a whole lot. I try to talk to people individually as humans. I was raised in a way that if we have an issue, let's talk about it. I mean, if I've got an issue or you've got an issue, I think it's better for us to talk about it and figure out what's going on. I think Mike said earlier, a lot of disagreements happen from miscommunication not miscommunication, just not having all the information. I think being able to communicate with somebody and get to the bottom of it, talk about the issue is the best way to handle it.
All right, number 4, financial responsibility and oversight. Purpose, protect limited funds and ensure accountability. What experience do you have with budgets, grants, or financial oversight?
Financial oversight, budgets, when I was project manager, I was obviously doing some budget stuff. I would write an estimate and then make sure that everything stayed within that budget. So I've got a pretty good idea of how to keep track of funds and watch where they're going. Then when I was at Journeys 2, we had to keep track of everybody's hours. We watched every hour. We were only allowed a certain amount of hours per thousands of dollars we were projected to make that week. So we would constantly be looking at how much money we had made versus how many people we had. So I've got a pretty good idea of how to go through and look at make spreadsheet so that we can see how many hours we need to work, or how many people we can staff based on current needs.
Okay. How would you approach approving major purchases or expenses?
I think I would go through and do as much research on them as I can. I really like to read reviews and do research because I also really like to window shop. So when it comes to a big purchase, I think I'd like to be involved and kind of get in everybody's head who's involved to see what's going on, see if we can get the best possible deal or the best possible product we can with the limited funds the district has provided. That's something I really enjoy, reading the spec sheets.
How do you ensure transparency and accountability?
I would say open communication, talking about the things that we're doing, being able to meet with the community or talk with the community, answer those questions that anyone may have. And having the ability to say, I don't know, let me find out. Talk with people and pass everything along I can.
Okay. Number 5, communication and teamwork. Purpose, this role requires working with the chief, the board members, and the public. How do you communicate during disagreements?
I try to treat others with the same respect I would like them to treat me. So by staying calm, not speaking condescendingly to people, I find does really well. That's a skill I actually got to hone a lot while at Project Patch. The ability to talk to people who may be hostile or trying to harm you while conveying that you do in fact care about what they're telling you and still being able to convey or give out the information is needed to help solve the problem or get rid of the issue.
How would you respond to concerns from firefighters or community members?
I think with open ears, I believe that if everybody around you is only telling you that you're doing good, that you probably need better people around you or more honest people. I see, from my experience, we can always do better than what we are. There's always room to improve, myself included. I'm learning new things every day. I'm 35 years old. I've decided I want to be an arborist. So, somebody's got input or knowledge I like to learn. I'm always open to hear, especially from somebody who knows more than I do.
Number 6, ethics and integrity. Purpose to ensure trust in a small town environment. How would you handle a conflict of interest involving friends or family?
If it was something to vote on, I think I would have to recuse myself from the vote. I think the job is more important than the personal ties. The benefits of everyone in the community is much more important than how I feel about a family member, I believe. I think keeping everything above board and open in a situation like that, just making it clear that it could be a possible issue so that everyone's aware of it, so we can handle it appropriately.
What would you do if you believed a board member acted improperly?
I would first do the best that I could to investigate what happened. And I say that because I understand as a board member, I wouldn't be able to talk to you or Phil directly. However, I also wouldn't want to put you on blast for something that was hearsay. So I would do the best I could to get all of the information before coming to either of you or coming forward in a meeting. With that being said, if it was an issue, I would have no problem talking in a public meeting about things that were not above board.
How do you separate personal relationships from official decisions?
Pretty easily. We've got black and white rules, or black and white, right and wrong. We've got rules, and that's what we have to follow. We go through, we have a decision to make. I'm sure there's verbiage or information on what we need to do and how we have to present ourselves. And regardless of my feelings towards a family or a close friend, if the manual says this is the way we have to behave, then that's what we have to do by the book. I think that's the best way to present ourselves, especially in front of a community that is so small, where people are constantly looking for somebody to slip up. I think it's really important to do the best we can to keep everything above board and out in the open.
Thank you.
Number 7, community representation. Commissioners represent both the department and the taxpayers. How do you see your role in representing the community?
Representing the community, I think, would be how to best provide them with the best product for the money that they're paying. I mean, all of us here paying taxes, we're paying, a portion of that is coming to the department. And everybody wants to know, I think, where it's going or that it's going to help them. And I feel like the fire department's one of those things you don't think about quite so much until your house is on fire. I think being able to communicate the needs of public safety to the community, as well as being open enough to receive comments from them, whether they see me at the market or saw me at the Chevron, like, hey, I got a question for you, what's going on here? Or, hey, I'd like to do this. What do you think? I think being able to take that input from the community and then bring it to the team and then go toward the chief. I think that would be a key role for a commissioner.
How, I don't think I asked this one yet. How would you help maintain public trust and support for the department?
I think communication and transparency. Approachability, being able to have those conversations with people. I really think that would help with the community. If it's possible, I would like to see some maybe community outreach stuff or Firewise programs, something like that that can help get the community buy-in so that they see the need for the department, for the things that are required. I mean, I was on the department in 2017 and we were talking about Firewise and going through the essential class and how you should have a clean area around your home. And I thought that was a thing that everybody knew. It seems now that insurance companies are dropping people. Now all of a sudden, it seems to be prevalent in everyone's mind. I think if there was an opportunity to bring some kind of education like that to the community, I think that would really help strengthen the relationship with the community.
What concerns do you think the public has about the department?
I don't know. If I based everything on what I read on Facebook, I would think it's what everybody spends their money on. Based on the people I've actually talked about, it just seems to be communication. Everyone I've spoken to seems to be out of the loop per se. It's like, hey, this is happening. Well, I had no clue that was happening. Well, they have meetings. I mean, I've had people tell me they didn't know that there was a commissioning board of fire. Well, there is. So I think being more open, being able to communicate the stuff that's going on would be huge. Let them see what's happening.
Fire service familiarity. The role of commissioners is governance and oversight. Fire service is not required. What is your exposure? What exposure have you had to the fire EMS service?
So I was on the department for about 3 years. We did wildland training and certification. Well, I guess we didn't get certified. We ran, but we didn't end up taking our back tests. We did firefighter essentials, which I think is most of the real important stuff from Fire 1. And then took the EMT class was provided by the department. Being here for 3 years, I got to run a lot of different calls. Water rescue, fires, car wrecks, I mean, you name it, I went on a lot of them. So I got to see a lot of how things went and worked in 2019. That was quite a while ago. We're on a completely new chief. I'm sure things are different now. But I would say that based on what I have seen and worked through, I think I've got a pretty good idea of the needs of a firefighter once they get on call, depending on what they're going to do. Rope rescue or hiking up to Skinny Dipper.
How do you educate yourself about department operations?
I think reading would be probably the number one, and then talking to you guys, and of course, Chief Cleveland. I think he'd probably be a wealth of knowledge for things I needed to know in the position. But I do enjoy reading too, so anything I can find to read.
What do you think makes a volunteer fire department successful?
The volunteers. I think the volunteers and cohesiveness of the community rallied behind those volunteers, and a governing body that is doing the best they can with what they've got. I know Garden Valley has a very limited budget, but I feel like as commissioners, the opportunity is there to do the best we can and help secure funding to propel the department forward, so we can provide the community with the best possible service.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 9, impact on the department. Assess the impact of the commissioner role on the department. What do you see as your impact on the department as commissioner?
I think as commissioner, I think my impact would be taking the knowledge and the happenings from the chief, from the board, and being able to communicate that with everybody around, whether it's the people in my district or another district, but being able to let people know what's going on, answer questions as best I could, and being able to follow up with questions I didn't know the answer to.
What would you like to see changed in the department?
I would really like to see the department have a lot more money. I know it's not as easy as wishing for it or sticking our hand out. I'd really like to get involved and see, help come up with some ways to fund the department, and help their dollars go further.
All right, that's all the questions. We got the general impression. Is there anything else you think you left out that you want to add at this point?
I probably forgot something. I'll remember it when it's not important.
It's all important, and you know, it's tough to come up with stuff on a hot seat like that too. So
It is very warm. It's
Yeah.
very warm.
do it.
I can feel the eyes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Right now, I don't think so.
You'll think about it later.
Tonight, about 11:30, I'll remember.
Don't call me.
It's okay, I got those.
Yeah. You can call me.
No, I don't think I have any questions right now.
Okay. Once again, so thank you so much, and for
Absolutely.
all of the candidates, you know, I really, really appreciate the fact that you're coming here, sitting in the hot seat, and you're just laying out in front of everybody that, you know, this is how I feel, and this is what I believe, and that takes a lot, and you're volunteering, so I appreciate it. So,
Yeah, all three of you have made our job tougher now.
yeah.
You know, I felt like it was a good time instead of to not talk about it, but be about it. So it's pretty cool that you guys have 3 people to choose from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and one thing that has come across, at least to me, through this whole thing is communication. And I totally agree with that. And I don't know about you, but
Well, it's like you said, we're seeing ways that we can be better as commissioners ourselves here and that. And, you know, we need to step up a little bit more and do more.
Yep.
I speak for myself. I say we a lot when I say, you know, I don't mean, yeah, me and Mike, but
We're
it's
together on this.
together, you know, everybody together. Not
we're all
specific.
learning.
Yeah, so.
thank you very much,
Right.
everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Pleasure.